kind of really want a bucket hat, but I only have this one. A little weirdo. I think I got it when I was like 12. And every time I wear this, I look like a little jungle girl on TV just fighting through the bamboo. So, as always, I decided to make my own one. First we need a pattern, so I tried to kind of trace my bucket hat, but it's not that easy. So I measured around my head like so. You will divide that by 4, and from that you will draw 3 pieces. First, the narrow piece, that's the top of my drawing. That's the piece that will stand away from your face and shield you from the sun. Make sure that it's the same width all around. For me, that were about 6 centimeters. Second comes the shorter but broader piece. Measure around the low edge and make sure it's also 1/4 of your head circumference. Then measure around so it's about the same height. For that I used 8 centimeters. That's what it should look like in the end. Lastly, we need the round piece for the top. For that, I measured across the middle of the circle of my head and divided it by 2. For me, that were 7 centimeters. And with that, I just drew a circle. This is, by the way, a great trick to draw circles in many different sizes. You just take some thread, measure out how long you want it to be, put your pen through and hold it down in the middle with your fingernail. And then just draw around. Now that we have all our pieces, cut out the biggest but narrowest one 4 times. Then the short broad one cut out twice. And the circle we only need once. For fabric, I'm using these old jeans my dad once gave me. If you also use some old jeans, make sure to check if the colors look about the same. Cut out everything with as much seam allowance as you like. Just remember, if you have more, that's good because you can also adjust some more later on. But you will probably have to cut it back, so sometimes it might be double work. Now that your hand hurts from cutting jeans, it's time to sew. Place your longest pieces together, right side on right side, and sew them together on both edges. Of course, do that to all 4 pieces. Then take your middle pieces and repeat the step. Put them together right side on right side and sew them together on each edge. Then take your longer pieces, unfold them so they're a circle, almost. Then put them on top of each other, right side on right side. Make sure that the seams fit together and then sew around the outer edge. Then trim the seam allowance if you have to. This will make it less bulky when you turn it around. If you're super extra, you can also cut in small cuts on the edge. Just make sure not to cut the thread, otherwise you will have to sew all around again. Then turn the whole thing around. Squish it down nicely on the edge and then sew around on the edge. Do that several times if you want the typical bucket hat look. Then it should look like this. Now it's time for the lining. Find any material that's not too stiff and comfortable. Even a pillow sheet would do good. You will cut out 2 of the middle parts and the circle once. Now for the top part, you will sew the circle to the middle part. I found it helpful to fold the circle in half and pin where the fold was, so I knew where the middle was. Then I pinned these pins to my seams. Slowly I worked my way around. This is probably the most difficult part. I would also recommend to cut the circle a little bigger, because you can always leave the circle hang over the edge a little more. Then slowly sew around that. Here also cut off the extra seam allowance. Then make the exact same little cap out of your lining. Back to the jeans cap. Top stitch your seam allowance down on both sides. Then top stitch your seam allowance down all around the round part. So now it looks like this and everything is held in place. Then pin everything together and sew all 3 layers together at once. The extra seam allowance again you can cut off. To make the edges inside all nice and clean, switch to a zigzag stitch. An overlock would also work. And then zigzag around the raw edge. go, you have a finished, self-made bucket hat. But somehow, the hat was still quite boring. Also, it didn't fit perfectly. I still really like it, but it's a little too big. I can do something about the boring part though. I mean, my dad gave me his old Wrangler jeans. Let's make a Wrangler bucket hat. For that, find some details you liked on your pants. And then rip them off. Take your pieces and pin them to your hat how you like it. You can play around a little. And then hand sew them all on. Well, if you're really lazy, you can also try it with a machine, but trust me, it will probably look way better if you hand sew them on.
Yeah, that sounds painful. So, what did you feel like, Samantha?